By now, when you click on an episode of Random Review, you expect to see some kind of joke before we begin the review proper. Well, you're looking at one. Well, people are starting to find Octone and Blitzwing around, so I guess that means before they actually hit my area, we need to talk about what used to be the brand new triple changer on the market, Broadside. Ever forgotten amongst the ranks of Generation 1 characters, as the original toy was pretty bad even for G1 standards. Take a wild guess how his new version came out. This is a triple changer, which means we are going to be in for a very long review, as I tend to go in depth and get very detail oriented. And now we've got 3 modes to do, so here we go. This is an abomination. I don't know exactly what happened here, but this is apparently his jet mode. It is far from the long and stretched out jet he turned into in G1. This is some sort of space fighter with, I assume, some kind of jump pack. I don't know. Like this, I guess it's supposed to be like a Macross fast pack or something, but I don't know. Like if you presume it's a space fighter, then this is okay. But then it's kind of hard to see that. So I don't know. So we're going to talk about this mode as briefly as possible. There's a lot going on here, but we'll cover some of the basics. Cast in dark gray plastic and light gray plastic primarily. You got plenty of red as well, and translucent blue for things like his wings, as well as his cockpit, where you can see Titan Master Blunderbuss chilling and hanging out, waiting to be unleashed upon the world, which we'll do here in a minute. But yeah, this is the most common problem with this toy for everybody. The jet mode just looks terrible. And it's not just because this gigantic block in the back that doesn't transform down into anything. For me, it is because, well, there's his arms, there's his legs, there's his crotch. He doesn't really look like he's changing that much from his robot mode, and the fact is he really isn't. This is mostly how his robot mode looks. It just has a jet canopy stuck where his head is going to be. So unfortunately, he doesn't have much visual difference for this jet mode to actually work. And then, of course, you've got all these other weird details, like how the tail fins seem to be pointing backwards. That's a weird thing, especially when the wings are not backwards. It's not a Cyclonus situation. Also, for me, it's a really shoddy mode, because you have things like this. You have little tabs in his hips that connect here, and that's really the only connection point where you can firm up this transformation. You'll notice the legs do not connect in any way, which is how you would typically make a toy solid in vehicle mode. You have nothing but these little clips to peg into those in order to hold it together, and as you can see, they don't really clip in, meaning this is pretty shaky as far as vehicle modes go. Nothing really locks in properly. That's really unfortunate. I feel like in order for the budget to work, they had to actually get parts of Alpha Trion to work within this mold, and you can see a few of those once we get to the aircraft carrier mode. But for now, it just feels like they didn't know what to do with them in this mode, so they just kind of folded them up and hope for the best, and the best was not good enough. Also, we are going to start to get what is another big problem with this toy, which is, those metallic stickers. Now, metallic stickers can be fine if they are well made, and unfortunately, these just are not. You can see on this one where I've got air bubbles stuck under the plastic, and over here, where right out of the box, there is a hole ripped in one of my stickers. So that's always pleasant. Also, they decided the stickers go over 3-dimensional molded detailing, which is always ugly. Ugh. The budget is starting to hit hard here. Alright, so let's get Blunderbuss out. The cockpit does open up like so. Go ahead and remove him. I'll also go ahead and show you he does come with one of those Titan Master guns that's big, so it can have this big bucket in the center in order to accommodate a Titan Master, which in vehicle mode looks fine, because you can actually just get extra pilots there. But it's going to be problematic in robot mode, because I hate how these things look. And aside from that, You do have plenty of pegs, at least. Titan Master pegs here. There's 2 up here on these tail fins, and then there are 4 on each wing. You've got 9 spots for Target Masters to go, or Titan Masters to go. 10 if you mount the weapon, and even more if you mount more of the Titan Master weapons, because he does have extra holes that can accommodate. All right, so that's the jet mode. It's an atrocity. Let's get him to the carrier mode, which I think is probably one of his better saving points. So we'll get all of this folded up like so. The arms can come up and connect in. Get those out of the way. So we have the legs, which I always forget. You can't just move the legs up. You have to untab the legs and then move them up. It's always a little bit weird. You get used to it. Fold those together. Now the legs can clip together in order to firm everything up. That's nice. Flip the panels over. Like a lot of these triple changers, panels are a big detail in getting everything to work at the size scale and still triple change. See, those are going to go down, and the tail fins will go down like that. While we're down there, we need to flip up some kickstands. 1 there, and then 2 here. Let him stay up. This one does not want to work very well, but there it is. Now, all the way, we can go ahead and finish up the paneling by clipping the jet mode's wings in like so. Get everything up. And then to get the look complete, flip up that section there, and there we have the aircraft carrier mode, which is by far the superior version of his transformation. This actually looks fairly nice, at least as far as aircraft carrier transformers go, of which shockingly few. So there's not a whole lot to compare him to, but for the most part, he works out generally well. Very flat on the surface, as you would expect, and he does you do have to kind of forgive a lot of the junk underneath, including a giant jet cockpit sticking out the back, but hey, that's just how this has to work. I think a lot of them have to sacrifice at least a little bit of detail accuracy in order to make this work. I don't think he's done too bad of a job here. It's areas like here where you can see the Alpha Trion parts in the remolding, which barely makes him a remold because he's got so many extra components in play here. It's a little bit strange to call him a remold or even think of him as one because it's just so vastly different. The 36 there on the side. You also have it over here on the tower, and then a little Autobot symbol, all done up in metallic sticker. Also done up in metallic sticker is the landing strip, which here's the biggest noise to me. So the arresting cables are molded in 3-dimensional detailing that they decided to just lump a big sticker over, which means it looks like he has speed bumps. It's not a pleasant look for him. It's rather unfortunate. Well, at least they tried to make it stand out. It's better than just like straight up paint, though I might have just preferred just yellow lines straight up painted across him. For the most part, though, this mode generally works. I like the little details. I like how much detail is going into the antenna and tower. That's actually pretty cool. And you can also see where, if I'm correct, elevators where the jets would come up. Speaking of, there's plenty you can do here thanks to one accessory that's specifically designed for this mode, which is a bunch of tiny little aerial bots. These things are so frigging cool. So we're going to get to these onto the toy. I think I'm going to have to jump cut, and we'll just stick them into whatever random place I decide. So just like that, we have a populated deck of the aircraft carrier, loaded down with tiny little white planes. They are designed to actually match the Titans Return version, or the Combiner Wars version of the aerial bots. So if you look very, very closely, the detailing does match on all of them, which is a really cool detail, not only to bring some continuity between the two different lines, but also because, hey, that's just a really cool thing to do. Now, there is a fault to these, which is the fact that they are cast in the translucent blue. They're on the same sprue as the cockpit and the gun and such, which means twisting them off is going to create those little flash points where you can still see the original blue plastic underneath what is actually a thick coat of white paint. That's the part that bugs me the most here. I feel like if it was cast in this light gray like the antenna, if it was on that sprue instead, you'd get the exact same effect, but you wouldn't risk, little spots like that cropping up and ruining the look of some of these toys. Also, the detailing would have been a lot crisper without that coat of paint over it. That said, you can't just touch these up with a little bit of white, but it should be an unnecessary detail just because they decided on the wrong mold. Of course, they usually have reasoning for this. I assume it's on the accessory mold so that they can swap it out for, like, Tidal Wave. Maybe he comes with, like, little ramjet minicons all over. I don't know. I'm guessing now. But it's a really, really cool detail that gives him plenty of life in this mode. It does make things like the big, weird metallic sticker, which is going over hinges, which makes me worry about his longevity. You can see it's already roughed up a little bit on the edges. A little bit more forgivable, because it does give him a very cool play pattern. And of course, these things plug into the little Titan Master pegs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them here, all the way across his deck. Plenty of space. Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 10. And then you even have another point, which is this part, which can hinge down and does actually seat an actual Titan Master. Of course, now it looks like he's on the pooper. But beyond that, you can also plug in another Titan Master weapon, which does have a little slot there to fit. And then you do have some holes across his deck that can also be used for mounting more Titan Masters. So there's tons of playability in this mode, and it is the saving grace of the toy. So let me de-aerial bot him, and we can go into his actual robot mode. Finish up this review with, well, what we always end up with. But first, a quick little tour of Blunderbuss. Not exactly sure where his molding detail comes from. There's usually a little bit of inspiration behind these things, but there's not a whole lot to this one, unfortunately. Of course, just like all the others, it's the same level of articulation, ball-jointed neck, ball joints in the shoulders that don't really amount to a whole lot. Double hinge at the hips and the knees, that's your articulation. And no paint whatsoever. That's upsetting. But still, forms the head, so we fold that over and we'll put that aside and we will get ready for that. First off, I need to unclip the wings again. Get them splayed out and out of the way. Big panels like this, it's you have to remember where the tab in points are so you don't flex anything out of position the wrong way. So done. I'm going to open this up just so I have plenty of room here to get this double hinged down without really doing any kind of like long-term harm. Because we also had to double hinge out everything here in order to get the cockpit down across his back. Now these are actually going to fall and actually use the Minicon, or the Titan Master. I keep saying Minicon. He's going to use the Titan Master pegs to hold those panels into place. So that's that. That done, I can go ahead and fold all of this back down. That's going to form actual shoulder detail. That goes down. That goes down. Clip everything together. You're not supposed to come up yet. You stay down there. All that folded up from the vehicle mode, so we can flip the hands out. You can flip the hands out. Thank you. Don't make me look stupid. I can do that just fine on my own. Twist around so we can get the arms forward. Twist those around. Everything back here has to fold up in however way you want in order to keep this from getting too problematic. There's little tab ends here, little pegs, so these fold together to create these big knee blades. I guess I don't know exactly what they would be, but they are there on the knees. There's your feet, which I like to give a little bit of backward motion to, just so he has a bit of heel spur for balance. And then on with the head, which that's, again, not supposed to pop up yet on me. Click in like so, and with that in place, press his little belly button. That gives him his little head additions. And there's our Broadside in full robot mode. in full glory. He's waited so long. He has waited so long for this. Was it worth the wait? Alright, so, as usual, look at the head. The fun part about this toy is the cartoon had two completely different head models depending on what episode you saw. If you saw the one in Carnage and C Minor, that was the old head design that did not make the final toy, thankfully. But the head was animated two different ways, this being the more accurate to his final depiction. So I think that's a good point. Though, how hilarious would it have been if he had a spare Titan Master that replicated that other head? That, I think, might have been absolutely great. I also kind of like how he kind of has this, like, upward, like, anti-aircraft missile launcher thing on the sides of his head. Kind of makes sense for his particular tone, for his particular vehicle mode and theme. He's a big, bulky hulk of an Autobot, which definitely is my aesthetic. I like the big, powerful robots. He comes across pretty nice here. The grays work together pretty well, and that makes the red just pop out really nicely. Very nice way of working his G1 color scheme, and definitely putting on a very good presence about him. And I think there's enough plastic mixing around in order to give him an interesting look. Things like the translucence in his chest, which give him a little bit of three-dimensional detail. See some inner workings there inside of his torso, as well as little bits like the yellow across his shoulder, and little details that make him stand out just enough without going like too heavy into things. It's about the tone I would expect here. Now, because the jet mode doesn't really hide much of him, we don't really get any new details in this mode. He's pretty much just what you would expect. It's a lot of the jet mode parts now arranged like a robot. That's pretty much what we have going on here, which I think is one reason why the jet mode is so disappointing, because there's so little element to him that feels like it's made just for the jet. It's really just stuff that's hanging off of his back right now. The cockpit, of course, but also these wings, which are attached to the arms, which I never like when they do that. This means that if it's hinged the wrong way, they can get into the articulation and obstruct things, so they have to be out. Have to be beyond these panels on his back. And he really, it's really strange. It looks weird to have the wings coming up with his arms like that when they're not really accounting for anything. There is a hinge. Like, there is an actual hinge on there, which help the visual when he's just standing on his lonesome, and it can help with some posing, at least to make it look nice and clear. But then again, you also have big wings just sticking out his back. I wish there was just something I could do with them, somewhere for them to go, rather than just stick here. It's weird that for as long as we've had Transformers with wings on their backs, thank you Seeker molds, we've never really been able to figure out how to get some of these things to work properly. It's unfortunate, and it definitely it's one of the things that kind of holds the toy back. Play-wise, you do have options here. He's got Titan Master pegs on his forearms, as well as fists for 5mm guns. You also have a little more ports on his elbows, as well as up here if you want to mount more Titan Master weaponry. Plenty to do as far as playing goes. Speaking of articulation, his head does go left and right. It's that weird thing where the torso gimmick lets him go left and right enough, but you don't get the full rotation unless you keep these things down. That makes his head look a little bit small for how bulked up his body is. I think on him, I definitely prefer to leave those things up. Shoulders do have outward motion here, as well as forward. Like I said, if the wings are up, there is no hindrance. And then you have bicep rotation, as well as an elbow bend. Nothing in the wrist, unfortunately. Nothing in the waist either. We get the hip articulation, which is good. Universal motion like that. But you also have that peg from the jet mode, which is going to get in the way of the leg going forward. That's really annoying. You also have 90-degree knees, which is not a bad thing. Nothing in the ankle as far as side rocking, but you get some back and forth motion. And I like that an ankle that's double hinged, just in case you need to put more balance toward his rear without having some gigantic thing hanging out his ankle just so he can balance himself. All in all, not bad articulation, just a few oddities, things like the wings and such getting in the way. And then, of course, there's the return of his Titan Master weapon with that big bucket in the middle. That is so annoying. And of course, you don't see his G1 axe anywhere, so he does not come with his signature weapon, which is a little bit disappointing. That, my friends, is Titan's Return Broadside. He's got so many problems with him, so many associated with that jet mode, the bad stickers, and some weirdness in the articulation of robot mode. He makes up for it with a very nice, powerful looking robot with some decent articulation, and yes, a very play-centric battleship mode, which does do quite a bit at the Voyager price point. I would call him the worst toy in the Titans Return lineup so far. I haven't gotten all of them, so it's a hard thing to quantify, but of the toys I've gotten so far, he's been the most disappointing, simply because there's so much on him that feels uninspired, which is a real downside. I think he's got potential, but man, he needed some more thought into his design.